Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we are looking at a pair of Pokemon that are coming after your energy. A couple of Pokemon that don't have a huge amount in common, but what they do have in common is they are going to try and make sure that you do not have the energy that you need, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty gosh darned awesome. I'm talking about Clefable, and I'm talking about Masquerain. So why don't we start off having a little bit of a look at Clefable. Now, Clefable is a stage 1 Pokemon with 110 HP. It is fine. It's not particularly exciting. It's not particularly great. It's not something we're going to be particularly excited about. We've got a retreat cost of 2, which means if you want free retreat, you're going to have to go ahead and use yourself an air balloon. And we've got a weakness to metal here. Remember, Clefable is actually a fairy Pokemon, but we've removed fairy Pokemon from the trading card game. So now we've got a psychic type, which is weak to metal, rather than a fairy type that is weak to metal. So there we go. Also, check the artwork with all the Drifloons on. That is kind of awesome. Now, being a psychic Pokemon is also kind of awesome. It means Mysterious Treasure to search you out, Spell Tag to do a bit of extra damage when you're KO'd, Malamar to accelerate energy if that's what you're into. It's a really nice time to be a psychic Pokemon. Not to mention that you're hitting weakness on Mewtwo and Mew, which is also a pretty gosh darned good thing. Now, we'll mention the attack briefly in a moment. We're not getting excited about it, but we are getting excited about the ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may choose one energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon and put it on top of their deck. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Clefable comes in as a lovely little bit of energy denial. You're taking an energy, you're putting it on top of their deck. And if you just occasionally evolve up one Clefable, let's say you play Ditto Prism Star in your deck, which can evolve into any stage 1. And every so often you just drop a single Clefable to get rid of one of their energy, it's not going to be particularly exciting, it's not going to work particularly great. But what we do is we combine it with a bunch of other cards, and we end up with a genuinely good energy denial deck. Now, of course, one thing you could do if you were feeling a little bit cheeky here is use Clefable with that Palossand we mentioned the other day, or Center Scorch or something along those lines. Use it, or even just the supporter card Belelba and Bryson Man, something that mills cards from the top of your opponent's deck. So now you put it on top of their deck, but you immediately discard the top couple cards of their deck, and now all of a sudden they don't have the top card of their deck, so you've actually got rid of it in its entirety. It's not quite so good for milling because you're putting a card on top of their deck right before you start milling their cards. One could argue not the best way to mill, but you're also getting rid of their energy for good, so you might be able to forgive yourself. But let's not forget the other day we had a little bit of a look at Scoop Up Net. And Scoop Up Net, lovely card, lets you pick up one of your non-GX, non-V Pokemon and put it into your hand. You have to discard all cards attached to it, but Clefable shouldn't have any cards attached to it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, things are going rather nicely, because it turns Scoop Up Net into the ability. Simple as that. It literally means that what you can do is play Scoop Up Net just to reuse Clefable's ability, and you're golden. Of course, do remember, if you want to reuse the ability immediately, you will have to have a Clefairy on the bench or a Ditto ready to evolve up into it. Otherwise, it won't really work. You have been warned. You can use Super Scoop Up, but Super Scoop Up is on a coin flip. It's not to say you shouldn't use Super Scoop Up, it is to say that for this, Scoop Up Net is better. And then, of course, you would use something like Crushing Hammer to get rid of a little bit of energy. And you would use something like Team Yell Grunt to put energy back into their hand. You wouldn't generally just play this as, I'm getting rid of the occasional energy. You use this to get rid of the energy, with Crushing Hammer, with Team Yell Grunt, with Scoop Up Net. And then you could even have an attacker like Torkoal V. Doesn't have to be Torkoal V, it could be anyone. I like Torkoal V because it's got a big attack, And it's also got an attack which discards 2 energy. So even if you're playing against an opponent who's got Welder decks running around, use Welder and Clefable and Crushing Hammer and Team Yell Grunt, and you can be legitimately getting rid of 4 or 5 energy cards in a turn. This can be a really, really good way to get rid of all the energy from your opponent. Now, as for the attack here, it ain't nothing to get excited about. It really isn't a great attack. 1 psychic, 1 colorless, 60 damage. It is about as generic and boring an attack as you can get. It's not necessarily to say it's a terribly bad attack. It's a kind of attack where if you use it, you're probably going to be wishing you just used a better Pokemon's attack. Hey ho. But you see, it's all very well and good getting their energy, but they're going to try and get their energy back, and that is where Masquerain comes in. Now, when we've got a lot of cards to talk about, like we have at the moment with Rebellion Crash dropping about 40 new videos worth of cards in one go, cheers for that, we like to try and do the most exciting ones and then try and group them together and theme them. And most of the time, like when we looked at Luxray and Scizor, it was very much hey, these are 2 Pokemon that do extra damage if they evolve this turn. But these 2 Pokemon here actually make a legitimately good pair and a legitimately good combo. Let me explain. So, starting off then, 90 HP, very low. Retreat cost of 1 means that you could use U-turn board, which is nice. And you got a weakness to fire, which, because of all those Welder decks running around, is not particularly good. And you're a grass Pokemon, which, now, there is one good thing about being an evolved grass Pokemon, and that is that you do get Turffield Stadium, that once during your turn lets you search your deck for an Evolution grass Pokemon and put it into your hand. That is awesome. Outside of that, most grass things are like Life Forest Prism Star that heal, and you're a 90 HP Pokemon with a bad weakness, don't get excited. Love Turffield Stadium, because this is an evolved grass Pokemon. Outside of that, and you're not even really hitting anything good for weakness at the moment, unless you're against a Stonejourner deck, in which case I retract my previous statement. But you see, it's not about the basics here. It is about the first attack, and the first attack is beautiful. 1 colorless energy, 30 damage. Energy can't be attached to the defending Pokemon from your opponent's hand during their next turn. Yes. All of the yes. This is a phenomenal attack. And when you combine it with something like Clefable, we could legitimately have a great new budget, single prize, call it what you will deck that stands a real chance. You see, generally speaking, when I talk about things like Team Yell Grunt, and that is not a card that has captured the imagination of the player base so far, people have not been loving Team Yell Grunt, people have not been getting excited about it. Oh, it just puts the energy back into their hand. They can just reattach it. Incidentally, completely true. Nothing untrue about that statement. However, this stops them reattaching it. Clefable puts the energy back on top of their deck, but if they draw it and can't attach it, who really cares? And this stands a real chance. Now, there are some decks that really aren't going to care very much about this. Naganadel decks, especially if they're playing stuff like Quagsire to move the energy around, not really going to care because they're not attaching from the hand. Malamar decks, again, not going to care, although even though they can use Malamar, that only attaches energy to bench Pokemon. So if you can get something in the active stranded there, and then they don't have an energy to retreat it, then the Malamar's not doing any good. They can accelerate as much energy as they like to their bench Pokemon. It ain't going to work. So do please bear that in mind. And also any decks playing red and blue, that will work. When you're attaching from the discard or the deck, it'll work quite nicely. Here's the thing. 2 of the best Pokemon we have at the moment for attaching energy from the deck are Arceus and Dialga and Palkia, and Pikachu and Zekrom. Both great Pokemon, both see a huge amount of play, both Pokemon that are generally going to go, I don't care about Masquerain, I'm accelerating from the deck. Yes, you are, once you've actually got enough energy on there. And that's where the combo comes in. The problem with Masquerain on its own is that there are going to be far too many times where you're doing 30 damage and your opponent KOs you and they've got enough energy. Masquerain does not work on its own as far as I'm concerned. Masquerain works when you get your opponent down to no energy on the board. When you use Clefable, Team Yell Grunt, Crushing Hammer, etc., get rid of all of their energy and then start attacking with Masquerain. It's all very well and good ADP going, ha ha ha, Ultimate Ray lets me attach free energy from my deck to my Pokemon in any way that I like, but you're just going to be there going, ha ha ha, don't care. Because you need the free energy on there. Even something like Pikachu and Zekrom, general rule, they need to be able to get free energy on, then they can full blitz. And what they tend to do is use a Thunder Mountain Prism Star and a Tapu Koko Prism Star. One gets an energy on, the other reduces the energy cost, and then you attach one from your hand and use full blitz. Now, Pikachu and Zekrom will have a way around this if they're playing Energy Switch. You see, the way around this is simple. What they essentially do is use Tapu Koko to accelerate one energy to Pikachu and Zekrom, one anywhere else, Energy Switch onto Pikachu and Zekrom, play a Thunder Mountain Prism Star, and then they can use full blitz without ever attaching from their hand, and then they can get rolling. Then they can move. But that's not always going to work. And remember, you have to do all this in one turn because the energy is going to be gotten rid of. And if you're playing something like Torkoal, after a turn or two of aggressive Torkoaling, you can potentially have discarded like all of their energy and then they're out anyway. That's where Masquerain comes in. Remember, Welder attaches from the hand. It might be a supporter card, but you still attach from your hand, so this will shut down Welder decks. There are decks that have a way around it, but I don't think any of them can always just be that complacent. Things like Pikachu and Zekrom and ADP, if you can get rid of their energy fast enough, you can still shut them down. Things like Malamar can accelerate energy, but if you can strand something in the active, Malamar can't do anything about it. That's where I see Masquerain, and that's why I'm such a big fan. I don't think Clefable on its own is particularly great. I think it needs to be combined with other energy denial. And I don't think Masquerain on its own is great. I think it needs to be combined with energy denial. But I think the pair of these in a deck with something like Team Yell, Grunt and Crushing Hammer and some kind of attack that gets rid of energy could be really, really good. Do please remember, if you're using an attack that gets rid of energy, you're not using the attack of Masquerain, so be careful. Now, Masquerain does have a second attack here. 2 colourless energy, 40 damage, switch to the bench. And this isn't actually bad. This could work as a hit and run Pokemon. You've got Twin Energy, which counts as 2 colourless energy, so you can pay the attack cost in one go. We do also have Triple Acceleration, but it does fall off at the end of your turn. Twin Energy is better. And we've finally got some really good blockers to use in a hit and run deck. We've got Lily's Pokédoll now, which doesn't give up a prize. That's quite good. And then we've got things like, I love Galarian Cursola. That's got the old fainting spell attack that Gengar had. Also had a Chandelure with the same ability, though with a different name. And essentially what that does is if you KO it, then your opponent flips a coin, and if heads, you get KO'd as well. Which is entirely unfair, but, if you got it, you might as well try and use it. The point I'm making here is that we've actually got a really, really nice couple of options here. And that's kind of amazing. Also, Chandelure is called Fainting Spell, which must mean that Cursola actually has a different name. Apologies for that one. My point is that it actually works as a hit and run Pokemon, even though the main reason we're playing it is for the first attack and getting rid of the energy and all of that good stuff. It actually still works quite nicely as a hit and run Pokemon. That alone is really kind of cool. I'm giving the pair of these Pokemon 4 Wassies, and I think I might be being a little bit over the top. I think I might be getting a little bit excited, but I'm foreseeing a bunch of games here against decks that rely on attaching from the hand, and then they have no energy, and they're not allowed to attach from their hand, and actually it all goes wrong and they lose. That sounds like fun. Not for the person you're playing against, but for you. This could be a really fun, disruptive way to go about doing things. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I think, but I'd be kind of interested to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at Lawasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WarcyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.